You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hi, everyone. This is Stellar Success with Dr. Tudor Francu. I'm your host, and I have the pleasure of having Dr. Singh here with me today. How are you, Dr. Singh?
Dr. Francu, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Having a great day. We're halfway through the week, and just an honor to be with you and share with your listeners what stellar success means for all of us in the field.
Excellent, excellent. Dr. Singh is one of the leading doctors in our area, that, tri-state area, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, with very extensive expertise in spine, interventional spine surgery and pain management, and also just all-around excellent human being. And I want to kind of dissect the way he sees, being successful in general in his life. So, Dr. Singh, Zig Ziglar once said that it's not necessarily of what you accomplish in life, but who you become in that process. Um, how do you define your success, and what is your why?
So I couldn't agree more with the foundation of that quote, right? It is who we become. I think a lot of times, especially over the last sort of like 5 to 10 years, and maybe even into the future, it seems like so much of what we're striving for and what we call success is far more materialistic than it is humanistic. One of the
Right.
trademarks that my dad always taught me, and he's a physician, and my mom's a physician, my brother, so I come from a family of physicians. Um, and the number one thing he always said was, you've got to be able to lay your head down on the pillow every night. And
That's
everything,
powerful.
yeah, everything that I do, whether it is professional, personal, of course, my parents, instill a lot of religious, teachings as well. So in all these facets that make up who we are as an individual, we need to be able to lay our head down on the pillow at night. Others have said, to thy own self be true. And so success isn't necessarily that I live in a fancy home, or that I, run a successful practice, or, win a successful, political campaign. Did you win internally? Right. And there's
Exactly.
so much we now are looking at self-love and how do we take care of our own self? And so, for me, very much, I can tell you over the last, especially 10 years, when I first came out of fellowship and first thought I was, this great advanced, pain doctor, and gosh, Tudor, how little I knew, and how foolish I was. And once I turned to looking inside and sort of making what's on the inside better, almost everything on the outside got better.
That's very powerful. Yeah. So you work from uh, inside out, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Um, you know, I also love Zig Ziglar definitions and quotes, and I can, when you said that, I can forget what he said. That he said, "Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better." And this is something important that you mentioned, being true to yourself,
Yeah.
and then project that to others,
Right.
and everything is going to be successful, basically, from that point of view. Yeah, it's interesting. You have an extensive practice, and professionally you're very accomplished, um, and you got to a point that in your career right now, professionally, you less, you're accomplished a lot of things in your career. What do you think is an example of a big win so far for you that kind of opened up your career from that point?
So in the realm of physiatry, so, for those who don't know me, I'm a board certified physical medicine and rehabilitation specialist. I went and did a 1-year ACGME fellowship in pain management, so board certified in pain. Then did a 7-month fellowship in stem cell and regenerative medicine. And despite all of those things, to answer your question, I would tell you getting into the field of endoscopic spine surgery has been my biggest win. If we look at how we take care of spine patients over the last 30 years, there is a lot of slicing people open, and not just open, wide open. Shredding muscles off the bone, removing bones, placing rods, screws, bone grafts, fusing people, revising those fusions. As an amazing anesthesiologist, have seen, I'm sure, far more wild cases than I've
Yes.
been in. But the reality is, so many other fields of medicine have gone from wide open to what we call percutaneous, or being able to access things with a stab incision or a small incision, but spine really hasn't. And not, for those in the know, it would be no surprise that the Koreans, the Germans, the Indians, they are light years ahead of us when it comes to spine endoscopy. And so my big win was to look at the field in totality and say, what can we do better? And what we can do better is try to accomplish the goals of open surgery without opening the patient. And many of the listeners will clearly know the example of cardiothoracic surgery and cracking the chest open, and now interventional cardiologists who are able to, place stents, place valves, fix major deformities within the cardiovascular space that require big incisions and ICU stays, and almost sometimes patients go home same day or next day. So for me, seeing where endoscopy could go, seeing how it can help my small group of patients, that's been my biggest professional win. And the crazy part, Tudor, I'm not even in the first 5 minutes of the first quarter of this game. And so, when I talk to colleagues about this, everybody kind of looks at me and goes, "And you're really passionate." I'm like, "Yeah, because this is just the beginning." And those folks, those colleagues who are around the world that are light years ahead of us, why aren't we, right? I mean, we pride ourselves as Americans and, American medicine, Western medicine, and these colleagues are halfway around the world, light years ahead of us. So
I noticed that in
poorly
general, European medicine is a little more, I would say, brave, not
yes.
advanced, but I would say more brave than ours, and we tend to stick to rules really well in the United States. And kind of this is a segue to my next question, basically, because I'm trying to see a successful person like yourself, a medical professional. We all do things by the rules, right? And we deal with people's lives, and we need to be very careful. And we have protocols and all kinds of things that we follow when we treat patients. But there's also this little amount of risk that we're taking all the time, like every time with every patient, right? And sometimes things don't go well, and we all know that it's human nature, I would say. Was there anything in your career that not necessarily didn't go your way, and how did you deal with that risk, taking that risk, or solving that problem or dealing with the fact that you're not happy with, how things ended up. Um, how did you deal with that situation
Yeah,
mentally?
yeah. I think one of the foundations of how I've gotten to where I am today is not simply looking at the successes I had or the wins I had, but actually being thankful for the losses that I've had. Being okay that I'm not perfect, understanding that whether it was a situation that I myself messed up in, or maybe it was somebody who did something harmful to me, either way, to be okay and say, hey, so and so, you hurt me, you set my career back, you stalled me. Thank you. I appreciate that, because where I am today is a totality of all the things that come before me. So whether they were successes, SATs and MCATs and GPAs and all the classic things that, get us where we are successfully, but also the people who said, no, you can't do that, or that's never been done before, or, intentionally, diverted things away from me and opportunities. Thanks. I appreciate that. Because it allowed me to, again, turn inside and say, what can I do better? How can I be better? And if I'm going to be better on the inside, it's okay. There are always going to be folks who, slow us down, or, trip us up. That's all right.
Yeah,
Um, and then that ties into one of my keys of success in life, and that's certainly discipline. Um, Something that I absolutely never understood. Could certainly tell you all the way through med school, residency, I very much just relied on neuron power,
yeah,
instinctive thinking, critical thinking, those sort of things. But it really wasn't until, recently where I sort of just succumbed to, you have to be more disciplined. You have to, if you really want that, you have to follow these steps. And you take the deferred payment, right? So
yes,
I know one of the things you've been fantastic with are, streams of revenue that are outside of medicine. Well, a lot of that is deferred payment, right? Okay, I'm going to invest in this project. It's not going to
exactly.
mature for 5 years, right? Um,
Yeah,
and I think all of us as physicians struggle with that, because inherently, to become a physician, you have to have deferred gratification, right? You have to say, well, I'm going to be a 22 and a 26 and a 28-year-old studying all day long, in and out of the hospital, getting paid far less than my college buddies or high school buddies who are already making six figures, and living in fancy, apartments. So I think that wears on us as individuals. And so sometimes as we mature into our 40s and 50s, early 60s, you're kind of, you're sick of that delayed gratification. But that sort of return to discipline, is what sort of has helped me. But
yeah.
yeah,
This is a powerful thought. I was thinking while you're talking about this that the fact that in general, medical professionals are dealing with this delayed gratification over very many years. Like we don't realize that some people are in school anywhere from 4 to 10 years to accomplish what they want to accomplish or to become a specialist in whatever they want to be. Um, and like you said, like in any investment, right? It's an investment in yourself, right? And I think in general, one of the best assets we have as medical professionals, I would say, is the willingness to persist longer than probably anyone else. And you get trained to do that, right? You year by year you get trained to wait and become better and learn more and deal with rejection and deal with failure. And like you said before, it's probably one of the most powerful thing to have some failures in your life because that's how you progress.
yeah. Yeah, and one of the biggest failures for me came at a time where I was the least disciplined. Um, and it also came during a time where I thought I was bigger than who I really was, you know. And so there was a lot of internal reflection, a lot
Humbleness.
of, yes, just being willing to, be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, you're not really good at this.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And that's
Um,
okay.
yeah,
Right.
'cause I feel like a lot of times, especially again, more now so than maybe 15 or 20 years ago, you know, people will make a factual comment, but it gets interpreted completely in an emotional state.
Yeah.
It's a factual comment. Gurtej, you royally screwed up, man. And it doesn't need to be emotional to at least begin that healing process. Sure, emotions are always part of it. Um, but I find that sometimes, we just to be able to move forward in life, sometimes you have to be sort of mean at yourself. But it's not really being mean, you're just being real and factual. You just take that emotion out of it.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. You're definitely right. And I'm thinking, very, very few people in our profession are willing to talk about failure,
Oh yeah.
because medical failure is something that as a society we we ostracize
Mm.
uh, very bad. But it's a human nature, and I think the more we talk about failures in general in careers and life and whatever, we learn from each other and we grow, right? um, and my next question would be like, is there anything right now that um, you know things that didn't necessarily went your way and you learn a lot from them? um, did that happen in the past for you? Did you grow out of something that necessarily was not the way you want it to be?
Yeah, there's no question that with most of I would say my more recent failures, far more growth has come. And I think that's mostly maturity more than
Yeah.
anything. Um, in my younger years, okay, maybe I screwed up on the SATs and had to take it again, or had a bad MCAT score, or struggled, with, pathophysiology in first year of medical school. And, I look back at those sort of quote unquote failures, and that was really simple. You thought too much of yourself. You thought you were too smart, and you weren't disciplined at studying. So that was an
Yeah.
easy fix, right? Those are
Yeah.
easy fixes. The later in life, failures, unfortunately, you've been divorced. You'll learn a lot about yourself, and especially if you're willing to self-reflect. What went wrong? Why did that go wrong? And not necessarily saying who's to blame. No, things go wrong. And you tie that sort of back into your comment about medicine, right? I mean, we're so
Yeah.
afraid to talk about it because, at least on the medical side of things, so many of our subspecialties are truly what I call algorithmic, right? In anesthesia, there is a pretty well-established algorithm. How am I going to induce this anesthesia? How am I going to maintain it? And how am I going to reverse it? And if Tudor or one of your colleagues starts veering off track, from a litigious perspective, you're going to get slammed, right?
Right. Right.
And the same thing is true whether it's, an ER physician trying to figure out a STEMI, or, a nephrologist trying to figure out nephrotic syndrome, right? They're very well established algorithms. So I think, you asked about taking risk earlier and, how and why, because the field of spine is not very algorithmic at all. I tell people all the time, it's the wild, wild west. Uh, and it's true, right? I mean, if 10 patients showed up to 10 different spine specialists, you would get 12 different opinions. Uh, and it's, and The funny part is none of them are technically wrong. I mean, some might not be ideal, right? I mean, you have, acute back pain and somebody says, here, take a whole bunch of oxycodone. Not exactly
Right.
wrong, but at the same time, you can defend yourself. Oh, the patient was in so much pain, I had to give him oxycodone. Or similar to spine surgery. Patient comes in, a couple years of back pain, they have a dark disc. Wow, we must fuse that. And the patient goes, has the fusion, afterwards still has the back pain. It's not a litigious issue. This is kind of standard of care. Well, you had a black disc, so you got fused. But nowadays, you would say, okay, that's probably not the smartest idea, but still something that, could be defended. So that's where, if any advice I could give, the listeners for the podcast is, there are certain areas of medicine and certain areas in life where things are pretty well spoken for. There's a pretty solid algorithm, and diverting from that, probably not the smartest thing to do. But there are other areas of medicine. So like, obviously, spine, interventional spine, minimally invasive spine, pain management, all these realms, very much wide open in terms of how you can navigate that course. One could argue plastic surgery in a similar way, right? Can do that.
Yes.
Even orthobiologics, stem cell, regenerative medicine, right? Again, wide open in terms of how you can treat various conditions. So I'm sure over time we will keep learning, and those fields will become more and more algorithmic. I'm sure AI will help accelerate that process. But don't ask me how I ended up being what I am today. but,
That's true.
but
Yeah, we talk very you know seldom about AI these days, but I think it's one of those things that is gonna revolutionize the whole medicine as a whole, the way we're thinking about doing things. um and maybe we should have another podcast just for that.
oh, Tudor, you could probably go on and on for hours on
Yeah,
AI, and not just even in the not just medical space in general, but even AI in anesthesia, AI in
right.
spine, across the board, and then of course, obviously in life,
Yeah,
it's going to be something that I don't know. I hope there's some form of check and balance,
yeah.
to it. But I am too far from the epicenter of what AI is and where it is. Right now, I'm just a spectator and hoping not to get sucked into the vacuum.
That's right. I want to read you a quote from Mahatma Gandhi that said, we're going to switch gears a little bit towards mindset in general for medical professionals. And she said that your beliefs become your thoughts, and your thoughts become your words.
Yeah.
Then your words become your actions, and your actions become your habits, and then their habits become your values, and finally you get to your destiny. um, is there any particular skill or habit that you think um, it doesn't get enough credit for your present success?
So before I answer that question, my mom printed that out, framed it, and it's actually hanging in one of the guest bedrooms. So,
Awesome.
the fact that you bring that, and it was something she gave to me during one of my struggles, right? So during a moment in life where, what I felt life had kind of collapsed on me, left a job, got divorced, didn't know what I was going to do with life, started this regenerative and stem cell fellowship, not knowing where that would go. That was the sort of the memento that she gave me. So that's very,
Interesting. I'm
very
glad.
sweet to bring that up. Yeah. Skills and habits that don't get enough credit. So I, wrote down 3 things for that. And they may not make sense at first. But I think one thing that gets lost is faith.
Yes, that's
And
true.
I'm very, very careful. That's not religion, right? But even if it's something of just, hey, universe, kind of need you today. I'm throwing out some good vibes. Please throw some back at me. That's faith, right?
Correct.
Faith that something good is going to happen. There are a number of speakers and motivational speakers who talk about what vibration means, and that the body doesn't know how to necessarily distinguish when we are talking negatively about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we just continue to talk positively about ourselves, right? How is that a positive faith that this endeavor is going to work, a positive faith that I'm going to have a good day today? And that the more positive you put out there, the more your body feels that positive vibration, right?
That's
Uh,
so true. That's so
yeah.
true.
Well, I mean, for all of us who are physicians, we're all really well educated. We're smart, intellectual. We have critical thinking skills. So there are very few things, I would say, academically that distinguish us from one another, right?
Yeah.
Except for Tudor really enjoyed anesthesia and Gurtej really enjoyed physiatry and spine. Like, aside from that, you are tremendously accomplished in your field, and I hope to continue to make something of myself one day. So the faith in that. One of the other pieces is laughter.
That's
Be
good. That's a good one.
be happy. I remember,
Be happy as a habit.
yeah, as a habit, right?
Exactly.
Um, for all of the negative things that happen, or sort of the reverse, for all of the positive things that didn't happen, imagine the negative thing that could happen, right? Man, I wish I drove a McLaren Senna. Okay, thank goodness I have a car to drive and I'm not taking public transportation.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, as much as we get caught up, and part of that is because we're so successful.
Yeah.
Success breeds more success, which breeds more success, and then you get caught in just this vicious, successful cycle, and propagating more success. But at the same time, if you don't stop and appreciate what you have, if you don't have faith that what you're going to do is going to succeed, and if you don't laugh and and have some form of that internal happiness, then what is the fancy sports car really mean then?
Exactly. That's so powerful. Gratefulness in general,
Mm.
being grateful for what we have,
Yeah,
not be mad for what we don't have.
correct, correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are like really, really important things and kind of an out of the box, um, essential skills, I would say, that someone can develop over time.
And
Uh,
and they are natural skills, right?
yes.
I mean, as kids growing up, we laughed all the time. But yeah, the burdens of life, the responsibilities of life, the spouses and the children's and the business and the employees, and
Yeah.
all these other things in life tend to take us down, or tend to bring us down from time to time, right? So
Yeah.
kind of
I
just
agree.
remember what it was like to be a kid. Laugh a little bit. I definitely, I know for a fact a lot of my the employees that I work with, they'll, Dr. Singh, sometimes you're a real goofball. I'm like, yeah, sometimes I need to be, because if I
That's
just
true.
got sucked into all the negativity, I wouldn't be happy.
That's awesome. So now that we have those skills and habits that you love, tell me, how is your, like a normal day in your life, in terms of like your routines,
Yeah,
your habits that you do every day? How do you see, your approach to nutrition and health in general? Um, how does a day look like for you?
yeah. So, just turned 45 a couple months ago, and have a serious family history for cardiovascular events, and with 50 on the horizon, kind of said to myself, you need to self-reflect here, right? So had those very blunt, factual conversations, in the mirror, like, hey man, you can't weigh this much anymore. You have to cut this down. So, I spent hours on YouTube, because one of the things is being efficient, right?
Yeah.
So many of us who are successful have found high efficiency to accomplish certain tasks. So for me, and in my weight loss journey and in my better health journey, what I have learned to do is, try to do like a 20-30 minute workout routine in the morning.
Good.
You bought some adjustable dumbbells, just things I can do around the house, right? I don't need a gym membership, but I can squat and I can plank and I can do my pelvic bridges, which, by the way, I tell all my patients to do those for their back pain health. But, bicep curls and push-ups and, overhead press, right? So simple things that can gain, a small amount of muscle, but add, muscle, mass to my frame.
Yeah.
I have become, more disciplined with intermittent fasting. And so I'll do two forms. One is just the daily, I try not to eat until noon. So I will finish up dinner, around 6-7 o'clock, and then not eat again until about lunch the next day. I try to do that at least 5 times a week. Obviously a little easier on the weekends because I do, without having children, I get to sleep in.
That's funny.
So for those on the podcast with kids, sorry, don't know what to do there. Anyway, intermittent fast about 5 times a week. And then about once every 2 weeks, I'll try to do what I call a long fast. So something in the range of about 40 hours, where it's, just water, plain tea, black coffee, and stay, well hydrated that way. Knowing
That's
that
amazing.
sometimes you have to add a little bit of salt or, some sort of a mineral powder.
Electrolytes or
Yeah, exactly. Because, we all get cranky,
yeah.
during those longer fasts. And so what I put all that together because what's the efficiency behind it? So if I can finish dinner by 6-7 o'clock, then I take a 30-minute walk sometime about 7-8 o'clock, right? So I am burning the glucose in my bloodstream, right?
That's
If I
very good.
Right, if I can burn glucose before I go to bed, I will get into a fasted state
Yeah.
faster, right? Then do a fasted workout in the morning, right? And then the last thing I did was I actually ended up ordering, those pre-prepared meals. And so I get them delivered on a bi-weekly basis,
Yeah, they're
which gives
very
me
convenient.
very convenient. And you know this all too well, right? I had a great day. Let's go get some pizza. I had
Yep.
a crappy day. Let's go get some Chinese. And
I
it's
know.
terrible.
And yeah, I mean, we all know the lunch room is
Oh,
always full of donuts and
yeah,
pizza and,
chips and stuff. Sure. Yeah,
cookies.
especially in the surgery center and in the operating rooms, right?
Right.
So yeah, it was an intent not to necessarily go paleo or go keto or go vegan, but it was a distinct attempt to control my portion size, make sure that it was higher on the protein, lower on the carb, and that if I was going to do carbs, make them complex. So, fruits,
Yeah.
vegetables, they have plenty of carbs in them. Yeah, they don't taste like a Hershey's bar. I get it. But at the same time, you do get your carbs, but you get them in a way that is not going to spike your insulin. It's not going to spike your
Yes.
sugar levels. And, having these kind of conversations now with patients who have come in and be like, hey, Dr. Singh, you look different. What's going on? It's been very impactful for them because they too have super busy lives. And for them, they were like, I can't get to the gym. I'm like, you don't need a gym. Well, but I can't do this and that. You don't need that. Everything that I've tried to do is something that anybody can do at home. You have the discipline to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And also the power of example, right? The moment you show your patients that those things can be accomplished in a very simple way,
Right.
you're a busy doctor, you don't have to, do all kinds of like complicated routines or meals or prep or do all these things, and you get
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
So, patients, I mean, we all know they look at us for example.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and in that journey, one of my reps works out a ton, and his wife's a nutritionist. And when I went to them for advice, it was all about counting your macros and counting your micros. And I said, I understand that that works for you. I appreciate, I respect that that is what works for you. I can tell you right now, when I'm trying to put an endoscope in a spine and not sever a nerve, I can't be thinking about my micros and my macros.
I know it's for
I,
some people it's a
yeah,
little too much, but like you said, following simple routines that can follow some principles of nutrition, not necessarily the minute details of
Mhm.
counting this and counting that. Um, and like you said, it's all discipline, right? It's all routine and what you do day in and day out with all these things. But yeah, I'm really excited the way you describe your day. It seems like you dialed in all this little things for yourself really well.
Yeah. And, I've been so blessed on, within my field and within the Society of Intervention to, be asked to do various conferences throughout the year. I speak as a faculty member for a number of different companies that make different devices. And I enjoy teaching. I think it's very important to give down to the next generation,
Yeah,
or, give back. Maybe that's a better phrase. And to make sure that as they then come into, their comfort zone as, maturing physicians, they have the fundamentals
right.
on how to do some of these very complex, procedures. So I was actually, one of the things that I do in terms of, you asked me how my day is, but also one of the routines that I have is I will sit down, and it's very old school. I will take a college ruled piece of paper and I will draw out a calendar, right? Now, of course, well, Gurtej, why don't you go buy a calendar? I don't want to.
I see.
I literally take, and actually, here's one literally sitting in front of me. This literally says July, August, and September. I don't know if it fades in and out with the,
That's cool.
anyways, it has all of the days of the week, between now and early December. And I sit down periodically and will fill it in. What am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow? What weekend am I here? What weekend am I not here? And, a friend of mine, she said, you can just use your iPhone calendar, right? And I said, hey, that works for you. But on my
Yeah,
iPhone calendar, I have a dot on every day because I need to know when Tudor Francu's birthday is, and I need to know
right.
when, so I needed.
No, and sometimes, like you said, you if you write it down yourself, it imprints in your mind better
Yep.
and it
Yeah.
stays there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do stuff like that also
Yeah.
sometimes, and people look at me like, you have an iPhone, why do you need to write this down? I'm like, yeah, but this is the way I do it, and this is the way I remember it better. Yeah, that's funny.
Do you think
Also,
Tudor? I was gonna say, do you think Tudor that that's going to be lost in this next
no,
generation?
I don't think so. Um, I don't know how this new generation is. Don't get me started on this, but I can only tell you that people said for years that books are gonna go
Oh, yeah.
extinct,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Printed books,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I have my own opinion on that. I think printed books are one of those things that will never go away because the pleasure and the satisfaction of having a book in your hand and going over the pages one by one while you're reading it, it's something that personally I really treasure. So I don't know. I mean, I listen to audiobooks, I listen to, podcasts, I have Kindles and stuff like that. But when
Okay.
you get to read a book in your hands and that piece of paper, it's something magical. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something like that,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so another another aspect of our medical profession, Gurtej, is the fact that we are very successful people and we earn a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
Different ways. And this is one of the things that many in our profession are v- um, struggling with, I would say, in terms of how do we earn our money. Most people are, getting a salary from their hospital or from their group or practice, but there's a lot of talk about building up some kind of passive income streams. In your case, how do you see this financial issue, I would say, for medical professionals in general? And is there any particular income stream that you favor or you like? Um, and what is your goal or strategy if you have one?
Yeah. There was an interesting statistic that I learned that about 35% of fellow physicians have some form of side hustle, right? And I don't know if that's necessarily a passive income stream like, investing might be, but that could be, whether it's moonlighting or whether it's faculty speaking or whether it's research and development. But 35% of us have some other form of professional income. And I guess I wasn't necessarily surprised by that.
Hmm.
But it does sort of open and beg the question, why, number one. Um, and then two, yeah, once you have it, then what do you do with it, right? Um, I mean, I think fundamentally, we should all understand how to live within our means. Um,
Right.
and for many of us, that's hard. And okay, well, there are phenomenal teachers like Tudor Francu who can show you how, to be responsible in that way. And for others, it just sort of comes naturally. Okay. But, as physicians, there are two pieces for me, when it comes to investing. One is something, that my parents taught, which was, set it and forget it, right? You have some that you don't need in the moment, put it away, invest it in a vehicle, whatever that vehicle of choice is for you. So whether that is, individual stocks, whether that's mutual funds, whether that's some cocktail, whether it's a life insurance policy that runs off of, the stock market earnings, whether that's, investing in businesses, whether it's investing in real estate,
Right.
whatever
Do you have
those.
any particular preference in on those choices personally?
Yeah. So for me, and part of this is, we talked about taking risk, right? When you operate around the spine, there's a lot of risk.
Yeah,
So for me, investment vehicles that can be well protected are critical, right? So again, if I, for example, let's say I had two kids and, one's in high school or getting ready to go to college, and, as fortunate as I was to have parents who, supported me through my educational journey, I would naturally want to pass that on. I might be willing to take bigger risks.
hmm,
So for my life scenario, I don't necessarily need to take the biggest risk, as I want to know that if I feel in the next 10 years that I'm done, I'm ready to hang up my syringe as a pain doctor. Um, do I have something there that is safe, is secure, and will continue to, help provide me and offer me a life that is comfortable?
I
Um,
see.
do I
No,
need to
that's
live
that
on the yeah, do I need to live on the French Riviera? No.
right.
Um, you know, um,
Are you favoring cash flow more than let's say, capital gains or net worth? Do you have any kind of way you view those things?
So if from that perspective, actually, Tudor, I would say I'm very much a novice. Um, for me, it is just try to be as well diversified as possible, right?
That's important.
So
Yes.
yeah, just be well diverse. One of them is going to tank and one of them is going to succeed. But if I had all in one or all in the other, then that could be a problem.
Yeah.
So, from a cash flow perspective, obviously what I make on a yearly basis supports, my endeavors and my luxuries and my,
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more, what is the long-term gain in this, right? What is this going to look like in 15 years, in 20 years, in 25 years, right? One of the things that my parents taught me, but I think is also fundamental to me being a practicing Sikh, is giving back. So at some point, there's going to be a chunk of whatever I've earned that I'm never going to use. Well,
That's right.
how am I going to endow that into something for someone else's future? How am I going to say, here was my success in 2024, and in 2064 somebody gets to benefit from that. And believe me, Tudor, it's not because I want my name on some building or any kind of nonsense like that. um, you know
Yeah,
to be
just
able to
giving back
give back.
to the community or to
Yeah.
the things that you're very passionate about.
And for everybody who is certainly religious,
Yeah,
right? Almost every single religion talks about 10% giving back.
exactly.
Um, for physicians, that's a big number. And I always
Yes,
challenge everybody on this podcast and everybody who listens in later. Are you really giving 10%?
exactly.
As I said earlier, my parents are not just very faithful, but very religious. And so, giving back selfless service is what we call
Yeah,
seva. And so in the Sikh religion and in practicing as a Sikh, selflessly giving back is a core fundamental. It's a way in which you stay grounded as a human. It's a way in which you say, I am your brother, and if I can have it, so can you. How you can uplift somebody so that collectively we are something better than just individually we are something, individual. Um,
right.
so
It's
yeah, so
very powerful. This whole notion of giving back, it's something that I learned over the years. And I was at one of the Tony Robbins meetings, and he's talking about it very, very powerfully. And he said that giving back to the community or whoever charity you want to, or church or whatever, is probably the most um, supreme thing to become accomplished, because somehow the universe is going to work and give it back to you probably multiple times.
yes, one of the hardest one. This was so during Thanksgiving, and this was sort of growing up. So during the Thanksgiving weekend on that Thursday, we would have some of our extended family over, and for us, all of the cousins were like, "Where's the turkey? Where's the pumpkin pie? Where's the mashed potatoes?" And all the aunties and uncles were like, "Where's the Indian food?" So I mean, like the spread was ridiculous, right? But prior to eating, my mom would sit all of us down in the living room. So there must have been like 15 or 20 of us. And we'd go around one by one and say what we were thankful for that year, right? It's Thanksgiving. Give thanks, right? And one of the things my dad said years ago was he was so thankful, not for, I mean, I don't want to make sure that I don't mess this up, but his fundamental meaning, what the sorry, the what he was trying to get across was as a kid growing up in Burma and going to boarding school and not seeing his mom as a kid, and then going to medical school, in India, even though his family was still in Burma, and his mom passing away when he was in medical school, and having to rely on his brother. He was eight of eight, so relied on his brother more so than on his dad. At some point he said, I have to have the faith that this is coming back around. And he said, I'm sitting here in the suburbs of Philadelphia with this big house and a fancy car and putting my kids through school. He's like, I could never have imagined this was possible, but I never lost the faith that something like this would be in store for me, right? He kept giving of himself, not knowing would it come back in return. And I think that's super hard, even for not just our generation, but even this newer generation where everything has to be right here, right now. If I give you this, what is my return right now? As opposed to understanding that the cosmos works in ways that you and I can't control, you and I can't even understand. But the power to give, will come back to us. Just don't know when.
Yes. This reminds me of a book that I love, The Alchemist, of Paulo Coelho, where, one of the beginning phrases is, if you wish something well enough, the universe is gonna find a way to conspire to give it to you.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but this is the idea. Yeah. It's something that, and that includes giving away some of your things, to other people. And I totally agree with you. I think we, as being so lucky to go through medical school and have a practice and be professionally accomplished, we have to find a way to give back something to the community, like not only in treating the patients, on a human level, but also financial level. And I totally agree with you. Somehow those things are going to come back to us somehow later on. We don't know when, we don't know how, but it will be good.
And for those who are on the podcast that may sort of struggle with, well, how do I give back? Who do I give back? Why do I give? What's passionate for you? Right? You don't have to give to every single thing, right? Somebody will give to something, somebody will give to somebody else, so long as that all of us understand we all need to give back. But if there is something that's very passionate for you, so for me, it's education, right? Having learned what I learned and then being able to pass that along, absolutely. Back, high school, college, med school, donations, call your residency program, your fellowship. Hey, I'd love to give a lecture, right? You don't need to pay me. We'll do it on Zoom. That's a form of giving back. So many things can be giving back. It's not just simply, hey, here's a check for $1,000.
Yeah. Gurtej, I'm gonna end up with two difficult questions, I would say. Actually, it's one question with two parts.
Okay.
First part would be, what would be a piece of advice or a nugget that you would give yourself if you were 18 years old? And the second part would be that same piece of advice that you would give someone else who wants to follow in your path.
Ooh, okay. The advice that I would give myself if I was 18, knowing what I know now, right? And I think, yeah, right. I mean, I say that phrase so many times as a physician in clinic, well, knowing what I know, this is what I would do in your scenario, right? Knowing what I know at 45, what I would tell my 18-year-old self is be way more humble, and be way more disciplined. But the funny part to that, Tudor, is if I were to go back and tell my 18-year-old self something, then I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you. Part of me sitting here talking today to you is because I was a little too egotistical as an 18-year-old, because I was, undisciplined in certain things. And that's kind of where I said, like every experience that I've had, it has gotten me to this point.
Yes.
And so whether they were good experiences or bad experiences, they've all taught me something. The nugget that I would give somebody else who wanted to be me is you can't be me. Now,
That's
now,
true.
hang on.
It's only one of you. I agree with that.
So, it's funny. I talk about don't be egotistical. There's a very egotistical comment. You can't be me. But here's the thing. If I was giving advice to, somebody who was coming up in the PM&R, in the pain and the interventional spine space, the first thing I would tell you to do is don't be me. Right? What you need to do is you need to be you. Right? I couldn't be somebody else. I can
I love
only
that.
be me, right?
Yeah.
So if I can be a better me, then that will translate forward, right? There are a bunch of just world-renowned interventional, pain specialists. We just a couple weeks ago had our national conference in South Beach, Miami. And there was a fellow, we were talking and, she was asking me different, tips and tricks and how to, start her career. And she said, I want to be just like so-and-so. And it's kind of like that old saying, like, I want to be like Mike, right? Michael Jordan, right? You can't be Michael Jordan. You can't be born from his parents or grown up in North Carolina or go to North Carolina State or somehow have some random guy at Nike say, you're going to be the face of our, entire brand, right? You can't.
Right.
But
Yeah,
you,
and this
that's
ties
you.
up with something bigger, even bigger for this new generation, right? Because they always think that they need to copy someone.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't find your own identity and your own special thing that you do, you're not going to be yourself. You're not going to be unique. You have to find that little thing that you only can do.
Right.
I agree with that.
What's interesting about that phrase too, Tudor, is I think so many times we all do something that is unique. We all do something that is special, but because we do it or it's maybe easy for us, we don't see that as being special. And just like I said, as much as success I've had over those who have, tripped me along the way, those who have supported me along the way, those who have said, no, Dr. Singh, I've seen a couple other folks do that case and you definitely do it better than others. That's when you sort of find and realize like, oh, okay, I am special. And I don't need to be that other person. I just
Yeah,
need to be a better me.
right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Dr. Singh, we can go on and on. And I love to maybe sometime later to have you back, but I really appreciate your time, and I think my audience will benefit a lot from your pieces of advice and your nuggets. Um, I thank you so much and wish you very good luck in whatever you're doing professionally and personally, and I hope to see you soon.
Tudor, it has truly been an honor to join you and to be invited by you onto Stellar Success. You are someone who I look up to for things that you do so well that I don't, and I thank you for that. Also, thank you for your friendship. Every time I come by the surgery center and I see him, like, Tudor's here. All right, it's going to be a good day. But
Thank you
no,
so much.
would welcome an invitation back into the future. And maybe I'll have learned something new to share. Who knows?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.